بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. معزز جج صاحب، معزز ہارون صاحب، خالد صاحب اور بہت معزز گیسٹ خواتین و حضرات، السلام علیکم. اٹ از اے گریٹ پریولیج کہ میں یہاں پہلی دفعہ اس یونیورسٹی میں آیا ہوں اور بڑا ہی موٹیویٹنگ ایکسپیرینس ہے. آپ کا ترانہ بھی سنا، بہت ہی روح پرور اور بہت ہی جذبے کو ابھارنے والا ترانہ، اور اسی طرح برائٹ چہرے لاء فیکلٹی کے اور لاء اسٹوڈنٹس کے دیکھنے کا جو موقع ہے وہ ان اٹس اون رائٹ ویری ایشورنگ. سو آئی مسٹ کانگریچولیٹ ایچ ون آف یو ہو از ہیئر ٹو لرن اباؤٹ لاء, ٹو ٹرن اباؤٹ دا کانسٹیٹیوشن, اینڈ آلسو ود دا ریزالو دیٹ یو ول make a mark in your own individual careers, excel, because you are supposed to excel by virtue of the fact that you are the best of the best species and by virtue of the fact that you are determined to serve Pakistan. جو ہمارے سارے مختلف صوبے ہیں وہ در حقیقت ہماری فیڈریشن کی اکائیاں ہیں، اور ہر اکائی جو ہے اس کا اپنا کلچر ہے، اس کا اپنا لٹریچر ہے، اس کی اپنی تاریخ ہے، اس کی اپنی قومیت ہے، اس کا علاقائی فولکلور ہے. چاہے وہ بلوچستان میں رہنے والے ہیں یا سندھ کے رہنے والے ہیں یا کے پی کے رہنے والے ہیں یا گلگت بلتستان کے یا آزاد کشمیر کے رہنے والے ہیں. 1947 میں یہ تمام مختلف علاقے اکٹھے ہو گئے اور پاکستان کا قیام عمل میں آیا. اور مقصد یہ تھا کہ یہ ڈائیورس لوگ جو مختلف قومیتیں رکھتے ہیں، مختلف آئیڈینٹیٹیز رکھتے ہیں، ہر آئیڈینٹیٹی کا عمر جو ہے کئی سو سال ہے، ہر فوک لور کا، ہر کلچر کی ڈیپتھ کئی سو سال ہے، اس آئیڈینٹیٹی کو ایک طرف کر کے ہم سارے اکٹھے ہوئے اور ایونچولی مختلف آئینی مدارج سے گزرتے ہوئے جو ایک عمومی معاہدہ کیا ان تمام مختلف قومیتی کے لوگوں نے، وہ 1973 کا کانسٹیٹیوشن ہے. یہ وہ آئین ہے جو سب سے زیادہ مؤثر رہا ہسٹوریکلی. گزشتہ 50 سال تقریباً ہو گئے ہیں، اتنی طوالت عمر کسی اور پریویس آئین نے نہیں پائی. اور اس کی ایک بڑی وجہ یہ ہے کہ جو سیاسی جماعتیں، چاہے وہ علاقائی تھیں، چاہے وہ فیڈرل سطح پر سیاسی جماعتیں 1971 میں تھیں، وہ سیاسی قوتیں اکٹھی ہو گئیں کیونکہ وہ ہر قوم، ہر صوبے کے لوگوں کی نمائندہ ہوتی ہیں. تو سب نے بیٹھ کر سائن کر دیا 1973 کے کانسٹیٹیوشن کہ ناؤ وی آر ون، وی ول موو اہیڈ ان دس ورلڈ ایز اے رسپانسبل ریاست اینڈ وی ول موو آن. اس تناظر کو ذہن میں رکھتے ہوئے اس کووننٹ کو، اس آئین کو ایز اے لیگل ڈاکیومنٹ وچ کریٹس اے بائنڈنگ افیکٹ اینڈ انٹیگریشن فار دا فیڈریشن، اس کو ذہن میں رکھتے ہوئے میں آپ کے سامنے اپنی بات کرنا چاہوں گا. The present constitution was negotiated in the immediate aftermath of having lost the territory of East Pakistan in 1971. It has done well to hold together the territories of federation. Since then, this is no small achievement when we consider that 1973 Constitution stitches together at least 4 historically distinct and ethnically diverse territories. Not only were the territories recognized as separate geographic units, but the people living in each region were a nation in their own right. This is how each unit and its inhabitants for centuries have had their own history, norms, culture, language, and ethnicity. Each unit had been larger. It was through international law means like the Redcliffe Award, instruments of accession, and referendum that parts of these larger units and regions were pronounced as territories forming the state of Pakistan. These international law instruments could not do a clean surgery around 1947 for multiple political reasons. And therefore, some Baloch tribes and territories were left on the Iranian side. The Punjab was divided between India and Pakistan. The Pathans were split between Pakistan and Afghanistan. and Sindhis on the Pakistani side were separated from those on Indian side. Therefore, it is perfectly understandable that there will remain cultural and even political undercurrents to pull away from the young federation, and that can only be overcome by allowing greater participation of them in the affairs of the federation. In this historic context, the nationalist sentiment, as sometimes expressed by regional tribal leaders, their poets and authors, should not be misread or mischaracterized as a betrayal of the federation. That is where the role of the political forces becomes crucial to keep the federation intact. Both the small political parties of each federating unit representing their respective ethnic groups and the national political parties bond together through the constitutional instrument. Only the political forces can persuade their followers to relinquish the dream of reuniting and instead extend loyalty towards the federation. That is why the very existence and uninterrupted continuation of political forces as per se is a national security compulsion. Since no federating unit can be compelled for long by force alone, it is the political party or parties that bring the necessary voluntary compliance and loyalty on behalf of their people towards the constitutional instrument. This voluntary following is the major long-term achievement of the 1973 Constitution. Since it was negotiated with the consent of all regional parties belonging to all the federating units, it is absolutely necessary not to upset this finally reached balance. Replacing it with the presidential form of democracy or forcing any other system will be an irretrievable disaster. An authoritarian approach will push the federating units to start rethinking disengagement. Constitutionalists, जो लोग constitution में specialize करते हैं, tell us that in the case of a country formed by a diverse societies and ethnic groups, only a consensus-based constitution will work. That is how a finely balanced instrument like 1973 Constitution had to be negotiated in order to accommodate the interests of diverse nationalities and geographical units. At present, one does not notice that kind of consensus for any other form of government. Let's be clear. The governance of any diverse group is a challenge. We, the Federation of Pakistan, are not a composite of only 4 major national identities, but comprise several other identified sub-nationalities that have emerged over a period of time, like the Urdu-speaking citizens, Gilgitis, Baltis, Hazaras, Saraikis, and Kashmiris, to name just a few. Such a diverse society cannot be yoked under an inflexible system, and oversimplification will strike at the very heart of Federation's cohesive spirit. All political, economic, constitutional, and foreign policy decisions have to be taken by consensus. That is why the Parliament, where these decisions are debated and given legislative shape, assumes such significance. One man can never assume a monopoly over wisdom, neither can a single party or any institution. It is the supremacy of what is called the collective will in Western theory and the rule of consultation in the Holy Quran that needs to be ensured, and which is achieved by the Constitution by installing a Parliament. The more you take decisions away from the Parliament, the more you weaken the collective will or the rule of consultation, thereby weakening the Federation. It was the collective will of the people of all federating units that was behind the passing of 18th Amendment, which brought in the promised devolution and along with it landed several irritants in governance. The said irritants or obstructions are manageable. The much ignored Ministry for Inter-Provincial Coordination holds the key to coordinating amongst all federating units to prevent inconsistencies in provincial executive and legislative actions. It should have a secretariat and staff no less than that of the Prime Minister's House and can be the conduit for cooperative federalism, a term coined by Justice Mansoor Ali Shah. Political decision-making by various political parties should not be interfered with extensively by non-representative institutions. For instance, The Supreme Court, for that matter, may be comprising competent legal minds, but being unelected, they can at best represent their opinions on legal principles. Whenever a judgment of one or a few judges is seen as replacing the will of the people, it is met by a serious reaction from the people. This phenomena has become much more pronounced lately. One notices the judiciary receives most vicious attacks sometimes back when its judgments have the effect of belittling a political leader on account of qualification or for justification to hold office or any other pretext. It is established now that people of federation have long-term fondness for their political parties and their respective leaders. We are in a way thankful for this and also for their division on political basis. It would be an unmanageable nightmare if they were divided on sectarian or ethnic basis. The same goes for the armed forces that are led by a commander whose way of thought and views are adopted by the entire force given the military culture. So the military thought process changes with the change of command, which occurs on an average every 3 or 6 years. This means that a time period in which the commander wants to achieve and correct everything is on an average 3 or maximum 6 years. The political parties, on the other hand, have a life cycle beyond the lives of their founders or leaders. They plan their political moves, developmental projects, alliances with regional parties, and linkages with foreign states for 3 to 4 decades at least. This disconnect in approaches to resolve crisis can lead to the military brass coming into conflict with political forces, although they agree on certain strategic matters. It is submitted that decision-making has to be yielded to political forces, as that is the essence of main covenant that binds the Federation, namely the 1973 Constitution. Their realization is gradually setting in. The media has applied pressure. Further, a major pushback has come from political parties themselves, that too from the leading ones. In the recent times, from mere occasional editorials or voices of few activists, the narrative about non-intervention by the military in civil matters has been mainstreamed by Nawaz Sharif, who made it loud and clear, and then by Imran Khan, who has shaken everything. The thesis that military solutions have a short shelf life is being hardwired into the hearts and minds of followers of both the parties. Digital space freedom has in some cases crossed limits to drive the point home. The military is equally less interested, but sometimes feels it has been dragged for national security compulsions. The Constitution is now a much heavier undertaking than when it was negotiated from an international law standpoint. The Federation since 1973 has entered into thousands of international treaties and conventions with states and international organizations. Rule of law now also means implementing these treaties. The said implementation may cause discomfort to people in some ways, such as compulsory documentation of economy or counter-terrorism operations under UN, United Nations law, or disabling a non-state actor, or restricting certain businesses, and so forth. That is again where the support of the political force is crucial in making the agreed international obligations acceptable to the people of the Federation. The good document has protected us from irresponsible narratives of non-state actors as well. Going forward, the Federation faces an unprecedented financial crisis. The political forces have to talk to one another and separate the state-specific agenda of stabilizing the economy from the regime-specific quarrels that would continue no matter what. If they do not sit and talk, then they are to be blamed for ceding the space to non-elected institutions. They can sit in the Parliament or any of its committees, or perhaps convene a full session of National Economic Council that comprises the Prime Minister, Chief Ministers, and economic experts nominated by all the provincial governments. With PMLN at the center, at some point in time, the PTI also is contesting for space in the government. It is setting where all interest in economic development of the provinces will go. Once the elections are held, then the government coming into power will face these challenges. These challenges have to be addressed through constitutional means. We have urgent measures like specific committees to fast-track international investment, but they remain urgent matters, and they are making an effort for the foreign investors to connect with local issues, rules and regulations, compliances and licenses. The NEC has a constitutional mandate to review the overall economic condition of the country. It can perhaps meet more often. The way parties sat in row for 18th Amendment sessions continuously every day, that is the way such a session needs to happen. Can come out with a list of tangible steps like rupee-dollar parity control mechanism, a list of entities to be privatized, time-bound revival of economic zones, energy and petroleum sector management, steps for fulfilling CPAC legal commitments, broadening of the tax base, SROs for fast-tracking transit trade, interfacing with American and European businessmen to bring investments in economic zones, and the like. To facilitate these measures, other steps will need to be taken without delay. For example, an SRO or appropriate legal instrument can be enacted to protect top 200 taxpayers, business people, from frivolous inquiries and tasking them to bring foreign direct investment in their joint ventures and to incentivize them to conceive and implement projects that create employment and turn the wheel of economy. Ladies and gentlemen, entrepreneurship is a high-level skill that government does not possess. It does not scare away those who have it. Issuing of directives by Law Ministry under Civil Servants Act to protect good faith actions of those civil servants of the federal and provincial governments who approve public-private partnership agreements, joint ventures, concession agreements, and so forth is also necessary. Since there is a given constitutional mandate to have friendly relations with all nations, the heads of political parties should agree that while they fully support independent foreign policy, they will honor the treaty commitments with each state. It should be a policy that Pakistan will base its interrelations on agreed and well-notified treaty commitments that the state and the Federation of Pakistan has with inter alia, United States, China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, India, and so forth. The well-negotiated 1973 Constitution serves as a treaty uniting at least 4 territorial units and local nationalities. It continues to be accepted by all regional and national political parties who have a clear mandate to function, deliberate, form government, form opposition, disagree, object, take executive decisions, and extend legislative promises to the people they rule. So let it be. Thank you very much.